These are dark days to be a horror fan, which is especially problematic for a huge horror fan like myself. Today, a game labeled as horror means that occasionally lights flicker on and off or an enemy unsubtly jumps out of a closet shouting boo. Or worse yet, a horror game released today is just a miserable rehash of a once good property like all the new Silent Hill games. Fortunately, thanks to this strange and exciting new trend in game development called the HD Collection, two timeless classics of the horror genre can be played by a new generation of gamers who can now experience their excellence. Is what I would say if I was sexy, exciting, and less of an unpleasable tosser, so basically what I'm saying is the new Silent Hill developers tarnish these old classics. Now, before I enter rant mode where I foam at the mouth and my eyes gleam red, I'd like to say that the core gameplay itself has translated well on this collection. That is to say that the new developers didn't change anything and inevitably mess it up, which is to say that the combat is still hectic, frenzied, and pretty much a last resort when you could instead just leg it into the nearest building and cry until the scary monsters feel bad for you and leave, you sissy. But unfortunately, pretty much everything the new developers thought they could get away with changing was changed, which is a shame because everything they touched turned to dust. Grim, unsavory, lackluster dust. The voice acting is the most noticeable change, but for what it's worth, which in this case is a lot, in Silent Hill 2 you have the option of using the original voices. However, in Silent Hill 3 this feature is sorely missed. I won't complain about the new voices in Silent Hill 2 because you can hear whichever set of actors you prefer. I personally prefer the old voices, so this part of the HD collection gets a write-off as not being too miserable. As for the new Silent Hill 3 voice cast that, remember, I'm forced into hearing, I'm not really a big fan of them, with the exception of Yuri Lowenthal as Vincent, but I like Yuri Lowenthal in anything because he's wonderful and brilliant and I would totally have his adopted babies if given the opportunity, not gay. I feel that a lot of what made up the characters in Silent Hill 3 is lost because the new actors failed to encapsulate their characters properly via inflections in their voice. This may sound like a petty gripe even for me, but when you have a very story-driven game like Silent Hill 3, the characters need to be played off perfectly because otherwise you're not telling the story the developers intended. But on the other hand, the writing itself hasn't been changed, so the story only takes a small hit. Now, I only have two more gripes with this HD collection, both of those are pertaining to Silent Hill 2. One is that some Burke on the development team increased all the game's, for lack of a better word, colorfulness in all the game's textures. When Silent Hill 2 was originally released, it was all about gray, wet textures. It all kind of blended together in this weird, huge, homogenized mess that was really unsettling. Say what you will about it being monotone, but Silent Hill 2 was creepy, dark, and colorless to evoke a sense of depression and emotional deadness in the player. Now the whole game world is just too flamboyant. It's like Silent Hill 2 was a pale man in a black suit who accidentally walked into a neon-lit gay bar one day, and the man who walked out just wasn't the same. Now he smiles too much and his dress shirts are all pink. And the second problem is that the town's creepy fog is gone. No, seriously, 10 feet from the player everything blends into this gray, homogenized mush. It's not mist, fog, or UFO emission. It's a case of AAA game developers ruining things that I like again. In summary, I only recommend this collection to people who are new to Silent Hill but are already horror fans. The game's graphical upgrade is overshadowed by the things it changed for the worse, and the game's only good selling point, said graphical upgrade, isn't even that great since these games already looked good on the PS2. And to diminish the selling point even further, on the PC, these games can be played in 720p HD without the annoying changes. So in the future, HD Collection developers, pretty up the old games as much as possible while changing the original art as little as possible. I mean, what Team Silent has done here is the video game equivalent to me breaking into the National Portrait Gallery and scraping all the paint off the canvases that I feel diminishes the overall quality of the portrait. On top of all else, I'd be arrested, and I doubt my future cellmate Big Tyrone would care about my artistic statements as he actively tries to rape me.